Hey friends, how's it going? I just thought I would pop on and share some advice that I'm learning just based on my own life experience because, after all, we're all here to help each other out on this crazy, wild, beautiful journey called life. So, last week, I was dealing with some issues. I know, go figure. But I was dealing with some frustration, aggravation, and some judgment in regards to other people and people I love. And I just didn't like the way certain things were being handled, and I didn't know how to approach it. And I was really getting weighed down by it. And I didn't like my thoughts, and my heart was becoming heavy. And so I took it before a counselor, and I said, hey, speaking of this situation, help me through this. What advice could you give? And she gave me some seemingly really good advice. She said, Heather, I have learned over time I can't control other people's behavior. I can't control the decisions they make or how they react or respond or what they say. So instead, I've learned to not concern myself with any of that and just worry about myself. And because of that, I have so much more peace. And I remember walking away from that conversation going, that was really good advice. I'm sure you've heard that advice before, or maybe that's your default way of dealing with hard situations. But I went before God yesterday in prayer. And as I was watching the sunset over the lake last night and just asking him to speak into that situation and let me know whether or not that advice was endorsed, his response to me was not something that I was expecting. This is what he said. He said, Heather, I have entrusted a mantle of leadership on some of my kids, and they no longer have the luxury of only worrying about themselves. I thought, wow. So as I was prayerfully marinating in that, the Apostle Paul came to mind, and I thought, what if the Apostle Paul said, I'm just not going to worry about what's happening with Timothy, and I'm not going to speak into the corruption that's going on in the church of Corinth, and I'm not going to insert myself in the communities of Rome or any of these other parts of the developing world, and said, no, I'm just going to worry about myself. I thought we would then not have nearly 2/3 of the New Testament that we learn from and glean from that is highly saturated in the wisdom that we need that's applicable in our lives to this day. And I thought, one, I want to acknowledge that it's true. We can't control other people's actions and behaviors because after all, we're all given the gift of free will. But I also think that we have a tendency to go passive, and our default is just to stay silent, or that we're, manipulated into believing that they're not supposed to speak into issues of other people's lives, even those that we care and love, because we don't want to aggravate the situation or offend anyone. And I think one, that's a worldly lie. Two, it could be a tactic of the enemy. But I also want to say that I think the best way to handle a situation like that, not knowing what to do and whether or not you should actually stand up or say something or, speak into that situation, is to go before God in prayer. We are given the Holy Spirit as our counselor, our guide, our advocate. He's there to help us navigate the issues of life. And so long as we seek his advice and his guidance in giving us the wisdom, the knowledge, the discernment, the compassion, the understanding of how to deal with these situations, we might find, there might be times he says, no, like put this at the feet of Jesus, let God be God, and you just stay silent. If that's the case, please obey. But I think more often than not, he would entrust us and empower us through that prayerful moment so that way we can speak into situations with truth and love. After all, I think we're all given a mantle of leadership as people of God, as representatives of heaven, as kingdom ambassadors, because we're not meant to stay silent on everything. I think it's just learning how to navigate those difficult situations under the guidance of the Holy Spirit. So, I would say sometimes when it comes to worldly advice, it's really, really good. But in all cases, I think that we need to take that advice before our counselor, our Holy Spirit, and ask whether or not that's endorsed. Sometimes we'll find that worldly advice is good, but it's not God's advice, or it's not how he wants us to handle that situation. And other times, we simply need to, eat the meat and spit out the bones and reject the worldly advice that we're given. So in all cases, Holy Spirit is your guide. So if this message was helpful for you today, I would love to hear about it. Send me a comment, leave me a message. I'd love to, walk alongside of you in your journey. Or maybe you have a friend or a family member that's going through a difficult situation, and this could be the message of encouragement that they need. Do them a favor, hit the little airplane button and send this out to them. I would just be absolutely honored. And I have all kinds of other encouraging content just sitting and waiting for you over at heatherferroni.com. I want to invite you to come hang out with me there. In fact, you can even put in your email address and get updates as they come. God bless.